is a young gentleman sitting at the Church of Brethren tonight before I came, shooting up in his feet. This is 34 needles in 2 locations in 15 minutes. It's a mess. If you walk out of the library and down that alley, this is behind the building. I picked up in 1 yard and the extension next to it.
I've never called the police on a neighbor. I've called the police more times in 4 months than I have my entire life. It's ridiculous. And half the time I called up because what this gentleman just talked about, with all the shootings going on, I feel guilty calling the police for sound and disturbances.
My car was vandalized in broad daylight by one of these teenagers, banged my windshield in with $6,000 worth of damage, and stood on my hood and my roof. The day that my car was vandalized, I called the police. The police never came. I got a call from somebody who identified themselves as an officer, gave me a report number, and the next day when I had to call on a different matter, the 2 officers that came said that that person, in fact, was not a police officer.
I'm here tonight because there was a murder on my sidewalk in broad daylight. Me, personally, am stuck here trying to convince people to live and work in this city while simultaneously patching bullet holes in my buildings and apologizing to my tenants for the daily vandalism, drug dealing, and prostitution that occurs everywhere I go.
So I'm here today. Last Monday, all of you received an email from me. There was a couple in the alley behind my apartment shooting heroin into their knees, their thighs, and their toes in broad daylight at 3:00 p.m. Okay? I called 911 and the dispatcher told me to contact non-emergency services if police did not show up. I waited in my car for 45 minutes watching this couple shoot heroin into their body and not care about the kids on the bicycles riding by, not care that the neighbors were out here watching them. They're just shooting up in the alley. It took 45 minutes until they left. No officer showed up.
After a particularly violent murder occurred last week, one of the city council members asked for ideas to deal with our city's crime. Because when you compare us to other cities in America, you see how violent we have become. When it comes to victims of rape, for example, we are in the top 15% of cities with the highest risk of a person being raped. We are also in the top 15% of cities for a person's risk of being murdered. For aggravated assault, which is oftentimes an indicator of whether murders and rapes will continue increasing or possibly decrease, we rank in the top 5% of all cities to be attacked and injured in. For this type of crime, aggravated assault, Baltimore is safer than we are, which means that the 3rd most violent city in America is possibly trending to become a safer city for its residents than us. And underlying the violence is an unrestrained drug trade that is indescribably evil in the number of lives it destroys. I know 2 people who collect drug needles off the ground because of their fear that children will get infected. One of them has collected over 3,000 needles in 18 months. As we were talking, he asked me to walk down the street. I walked 30 feet and saw 7 needles. In the face of our community having become one of the most violent in America, the call goes out for solutions. I want to thank that council member. I am a volunteer for an organization that works with violent offenders to help them never again cause the harm they once did. And while I'm passionate about helping people leave fear and pain behind and amazed at how people can change, the truth is that there is no program that can reduce violence even 20% as effectively as a police department that is empowered to prevent the crime and drug trade that are constantly pulling young people into a lifestyle of violence to begin with.